Hey folks, so here is the review for your Module 8 test. I'd recommend we do this instead of the practice test that they create, but that's up to you. I'm going to be very direct on what you need to know. There are 5 calculation problems you'll need to know how to do, and then a couple of looking at a graph and analyzing or creating a formula, and a couple other facts you need to know. And so in these 6 videos, I will show you everything you need to know. So one of the first calculations, and then you can do this in place of the practice test, and I'll excuse you from that if you do this. And to get credit for this, you should do the odds. Now I'll be doing some of the odds myself, that's fine, they're freebies. You have to show the work being at least the formula that you used with the numbers you used in there. And as you'll see, like for number 1, we actually have to do a couple of formulas. So you have to show work if you want credit. I realize the answers are on the back, and I do that intentionally so you can check your answers and either build your confidence or realize you're making some mistakes, to either fix your mistakes and learn from it, or to say, hey, Mr. P, I need some help because I'm not getting these right. So I don't just want to see answers. That doesn't work. Come on. So the key to doing these formula calculations is to understand what it is that you have and what it is that you want to know. So the directions say, given the 2 terms in an arithmetic sequence, so a constant rate of change, find the term named in the problem. So we know the 19th term has a value of -87, and the 34th term has a value of -192. We want to find the value of the 24th term. And so I'm just thinking, since this is an arithmetic or a constant rate of change, the 24th term has to be somewhere between -87 and -192. That's just a thing to think about. It'd be closer to -187, but that's a bit of a detail. So given that we need to know the amount of some term, we're going to use this formula. A sub n equals a sub 1 plus d times n minus 1. And so we need the 23rd term. So 23 goes in place of n. We need to know the constant difference, or the constant rate of change, as well as the value of the first term. Now, I believe on your test, they're going to have one of these values actually be the value of the first term. But on these, they don't do that. So it makes you have to do a little extra work. So either way, what we need to do is find the value of d. And that's like your slope, your rate of change. So think of these as coordinate pairs. When your input is 19, the output is -87. When your input is 34, your output, or your y, is -192. So we can find the slope then by taking the difference in the y's, or the outputs, divided by the difference in the x's. You can do a little choppity chop right here, and you get 105 divided by -15, which equals, I'm going to go up here then. So therefore, I know that d equals -7. Does that make sense? Is it decreasing by 7 every time? Well, we know it's decreasing. It is going down as the sequence goes on. Is it exactly -7? That's what my calculation says. That makes sense. It's the rate of change. Now, again, you're probably going to be given the value of a sub 1, but we don't have that. So we just got to work backwards. We know that a sub 19 is -87, so we need to take 18 steps backwards. So we're going to take 18 times, since we're working backwards, we're going to actually do the opposite of the rate of change. So we're actually, if we're going backwards, we're actually going to be increasing by 7. So that is 126. And so that's how much we have to increase to the -87. We have to increase -87 by that. And that gives us what our a sub 1 is. A sub 1 is 39. I'm boxing that. That's because it's a big deal. It's not my answer. But 39 goes here for a sub 1. drop down your plus sign. The d value is -7. And then parentheses here, and on a lot of this stuff is super important, folks. So really from here, you just take your calculator, scientific calculator, and you type in this all at once, and this will give you what the amount is of the 23rd term. And this will give you -122, which arithmetic sequences, it's a little bit easier to predict what is correct or not correct. And so, yeah, we talked about this being between the two outputs that were given because my input is between those two outputs. And so that answer makes sense to me. All right, let's try number 2. So we want to know the amount of the 40th term. So we want to know the amount of the 40th term. We need to know the value of the first term plus the difference times the next 39 terms. So the number of terms minus 1. That's where I got 39 from. Oh, that's a bad looking 4. Looks like a 70 to me. There we go. Alrighty. Well, and I could really put a 40 in right here, right now, but I'll do that in a second. So I know that is 40. Uh-oh. Undo. I know that this is 40. I got to find that difference again. And I also got to find the value of the first term. Got to start with the difference, though. So, again, think of these as coordinate pairs. 32, comma, -3068. Find the rate of change. These are some big numbers, aren't they? We got 1600. Oh, -1600. And then divided by 16. So D equals -100. And that seems about right. Yeah, it's decreasing a lot. It's decreasing by 100. And I say decreasing because it's going down and my difference is negative. So I know the value of the 16th term. So to go backwards, I'd have to increase by 100, the constant rate, 15 times to get the value of the first term. So 5 times 100 equals 1500. And I'm going to add that to a sub 16, which is -1468. Which equals 32. So that's my a sub 1. But again, I think they'll give you that, I believe. So now I know that I can calculate my 40th term. The amount of the 40th term is the value of my first term, where we're starting, plus the difference, which is -100. And I'm going to move 39 steps, or 40 minus 1, away from that first term, decreasing 100 every time. So you just punch this in, and you should get -38,068. I mean, if you wanted to show me, really on these arithmetic ones, if you wanted to show me that I see that I just need to go 8 more steps past 32, because 8 steps past 32 is 40. And so I would have to decrease by 8 steps and going -100 every time. So you're really decreasing another 800. See how that takes you to the same answer? If you want to show some math like that, you could do that. But getting familiar with these, or comfortable with these formulas, is a really good skill to have. When we get to geometric sequences, it's a must. Alrighty. Topic number 2. I'm going to do arithmetic sequences, and that'll be the end of this video. So that's 1 through 20. What is the sum of each arithmetic series described? So we're trying to add up all the values in the series. A sub 1 is the value of the first term. That comes up in a little bit. D is the common difference between each term, and n is the number of terms in the series. So there are 13 terms, and I want to find the sum of them. So yes, I could. Here's a few of them. I could obviously, I see a pattern. It's increasing by 10 every time. So I could add up. I could write out all 13 terms, grab a calculator, and add them up. If I fast forward to number 14, there's 35 terms in that sequence. That's going to stink. So there's a pretty slick formula that you can use here. And so that's going to look like this. So A is for the amount, S is for the sum. The sum of some number of terms equals the number of terms divided by 2 times 2 times the first value plus n minus 1 times the rate of change. So there's a helpful formula. So the sum of the 13th term, when n is 13, is going to be 13, the number of terms divided by 2, plus 2 times the first term. The value of the first term is 50, plus the number of terms in the sequence minus 1, and that has to be in parentheses, times the difference. The difference I found was 10. We're increasing, so it's a positive 10 every single time. So you just take your calculator and you punch this in. The parentheses are really important. And so you should be getting 1,430 on this one. So for number 12, I'm just going to label some things, then I'll go to 13. So this is your first term. You have 11 terms in the sequence. That's your n. You don't know the difference, though, so you're going to have to use the pattern to find the difference. So we're increasing or adding by 2 every time. All right. Number 13, they don't give you a pattern. They give you the first term and the difference and the number of terms. Now on your test, I'm pretty sure they're not going to tell you the difference. You're going to have to calculate it. So this one would have looked something like negative 44, negative 53, negative 62, etc. And you'd have to be like, oh, we're decreasing by 9 every time. Alrighty. So what is the sum of the first 6 terms in this sequence? Well, it's 6 terms, so really you could just add up the 6 terms. You could write them out. But let's know how to use the formula. So you take n, which is 6, divided by 2, times 2 times the first term, which is negative 44, plus the number of terms minus 1, times the average rate of change, or the rate of change, which is negative 9. 6 divided by 2 is 3, so I'm just going to put in 3. Again, mind your parentheses. And survey says negative 399. And so that's how we set those up. Again, I would write this formula down, folks. If you don't know what the letters mean, jot that down with your formula down as well. This is the sum of the sequence, the series, sum of series. N is the number of terms, which shows up 3 times. I don't know, that was a bad way to underline it. Number of terms. A sub 1 is always the value of first term. First term value. And D is the rate of change. And there it should be a constant increase, constant plussing of a number, or a constant minusing of a number, decreasing. Whereas in a second here, we're going to change over to a rate where things are getting multiplied. Each value is getting multiplied by something to get to the next term in the series, so a geometric sequence. All right, so there's your arithmetic. Again, after practicing this, using the formulas, having those written on a note sheet, and trying the odds for numbers 1 through 19 if you need some help.